I don't know what your idea of a dream home looks like, but for me, it was a log cabin in the North Carolina mountains, some fresh air, and finally, no one telling me where I can park or how high my mailbox should be. But turns out, dreams can have HOA fine print, literal fine print, at 1 in the morning, with fake cops, and a 13-year-old kid who ended up doing something none of us saw coming. If you've ever dealt with a power-hungry neighbor or just want to scream into the void about HOA madness, drop it in the comments. I'll be right there with you. The Coleman family, me, my wife Rachel, and our 13-year-old son Eli, just moved into this gorgeous log cabin nestled in the North Carolina mountains. After years cramped in city apartments, this feels like winning the lottery. Wraparound porches, towering pine trees, neighbors actually waving from their yards. Finally, Rachel sighs as we're unpacking somewhere we can actually breathe. I'm thinking the same thing as I watch Eli explore the property with this huge grin on his face. The kid's been cooped up in apartments his whole life, and now he's got acres to roam. Rachel took a photo of Eli smiling on the porch, whispering, "I hope this lasts." I didn't say it, but I hoped the same thing too much. Looking back, I should have known that level of happiness was too good to last. I mean, when does life ever just hand you perfection without some kind of catch waiting around the corner? Day one, we haven't even finished unloading the moving truck when she appears. Donna Beckett, mid-50s, clothes pressed like she's heading to a board meeting, clipboard clutched like a weapon. "Welcome to Whispering Pines," she announces with this smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm your HOA president." The way she says it, you'd think she just introduced herself as Queen of the Universe. I wasn't sure if I was overreacting, but something about her tone immediately set off every alarm bell in my head. Maybe it was my background in home security consulting. I install cameras and alarm systems for a living, but I've learned to trust my gut when people give off controlling vibes. And Donna, she was radiating control issues from 50 feet away. Donna whips out this massive binder labeled Community Standards Manual. I'm talking phone book thick people. Page after page of restrictions nobody mentioned when we bought the place. Mailbox height down to the 1/4 inch. Approved paint colors that look like a hospital cafeteria. When you can water your plants. What style curtains are street visible appropriate. I'm flipping through this thing thinking seriously. Did she really create rules for curtain styles? The level of micromanagement was honestly breathtaking. These guidelines ensure our community maintains its property values and aesthetic standards. She explains like she's doing us some huge favor. I catch Rachel's eye over Donna's shoulder, and my wife's expression mirrors exactly what I'm thinking. What the hell did we just move into? We put up a simple basketball hoop for Eli. Kid's been cooped up in apartments his whole life. Deserves a place to shoot some hoops, right, wrong. 48 hours later, there's a violation notice taped to our door like we're some kind of criminals. Unauthorized recreational equipment visible from street view, fine. $200. $200 for a basketball hoop. For a second, I actually questioned whether we were wrong. Maybe I missed some fine print. Maybe this place wasn't our fresh start after all. When I called the number listed to dispute, guess who answered? Donna herself. Speaking in this sickeningly sweet voice about how community standards must be maintained for everyone's benefit. I wish I could tell you I kept my cool during that phone call. But come on, who wouldn't snap at that kind of ridiculous overreach? Here's where it gets nuts. We wake up the next morning and the basketball hoop is gone, vanished, like it never existed. In its place, another note, violation corrected, fine doubled to $400. Someone came onto our property in the middle of the night and stole our kid's basketball hoop. Let that sink in for a minute. I'm standing there in my pajamas staring at the empty spot where our hoop used to be, wondering if I'm losing my mind. Did this really just happen? Did someone actually trespass on our property and steal from us because of some made-up HOA rule? The audacity was so extreme that for a second I wondered if this was some kind of elaborate prank. But when Eli came outside and saw his hoop was gone, the look of confusion and hurt on his face told me this was deadly serious. That evening, Eli pulls me aside, voice barely above a whisper. "Dad, I saw someone watching our house last night. They had binoculars." The fear in his eyes hits me like a punch to the gut. My kid's scared in his own home because some neighbor thinks she's running a police state. He wasn't just scared. His voice cracked in a way that told me this wasn't some kid's imagination. That night, I barely slept. I just sat in the dark watching. I kneeled down to his level and asked him to tell me exactly what he saw when he saw it, trying to keep my voice calm, even though I'm furious inside. He describes a figure standing across the street around midnight, definitely holding binoculars, watching our house for at least 20 minutes before disappearing. Looking back, I still can't believe I didn't immediately call the police right then and there. But at the time, I was still trying to convince myself this was just some overzealous HOA president who'd eventually come to her senses. Staring at that violation notice that night, one question kept eating at me. Was Donna just some overzealous rule follower trying to maintain community standards? Or had we just declared war on the neighborhood dictator who'd do anything to maintain her stranglehold on power? The violation notices start coming like clockwork. Every few days, another ridiculous citation appears on our door like some kind of twisted advent calendar. Grass 1/4 inch above regulation height. I actually got out a ruler and measured it, and it wasn't even close to being too long. Welcome mat deemed non-compliant color scheme because it was blue instead of brown. Trash can visible for 3 minutes past designated pickup window because I was 30 seconds late rolling it back to the garage. I'm not even sure why I kept measuring and timing everything, but I guess I thought documentation would somehow make this insanity make sense. Seriously? Did she really have nothing better to do than monitor my trash can with a stopwatch? The woman must have been spending more time watching our house than we were actually living in it. One afternoon, I'm washing my car in the driveway when I spot her. She stood across the street, arms crossed, studying our home like she was waiting for it to blink wrong. When our eyes meet, she doesn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. She just gives me this mocking little wave and keeps right on watching. The audacity is breathtaking. I actually had to stop and stare at her after that little wave, wondering if she was completely shameless or just completely delusional. Most people would at least pretend they weren't spying on their neighbors, but not Donna. She was proud of it, like surveillance was her civic duty or something. Part of me wanted to march over there and demand an explanation, but my security training told me to document everything instead of confronting her directly. Things escalate fast. At 2 a.m. one night, I check our mailbox and find a handwritten note. Non-compliant residents will be removed. No signature, but the handwriting matches every violation notice we've received. Someone's threatening us in the dead of night. This has gone way beyond petty HOA nonsense. I felt a cold weight settle in my gut, heavier with every word. It didn't make sense at the time. Why would anyone go to these lengths over a basketball hoop and some grass height? But the handwriting was unmistakable, and the message was crystal clear. We weren't just dealing with an overzealous rule follower anymore. This was something much darker, and I was starting to realize we might be in real danger. I start digging into the community bylaws online, cross-referencing them with every violation notice Donna's sent us. What I discover is mind-blowing. Half the rules she's citing don't exist in the official community documents. She's literally making stuff up as she goes along. Page after page of legitimate HOA regulations, and then these random additions that somehow appeared in Donna's personal enforcement handbook. Mailbox height requirements that don't exist anywhere in the official paperwork. Paint color restrictions that were never voted on by the community. Grass height standards that she apparently invented herself. Looking back, I should have realized immediately that no legitimate HOA would have rules about welcome mat colors, but I was still trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I was being too trusting, or maybe I just couldn't believe anyone would be this brazenly dishonest about community rules. An email pops up from an unknown address. Check the community forum archives. You're not her first target. The sender's using an obvious fake name, but they've given me specific dates to search. What I find in those archived forum posts makes my blood run cold. 2019 through 2023, different families posting the exact same complaints. Escalating fines for made-up violations, nighttime harassment, property theft. Every single story ends the same way. Families selling their homes and fleeing within 6 to 8 months. I wasn't sure if I was being paranoid, but the pattern was undeniable. This wasn't random HOA overzealousness. This was a systematic campaign designed to drive people away, and we were just the latest targets. The anonymous emailer had given me a roadmap of exactly what Donna had done to other families, and apparently, we were right on schedule for the next level of harassment. The latest violation notice hits our mailbox demanding $800 for accumulated infractions. With a 48-hour payment deadline, or face legal enforcement action. $800 for having grass that was supposedly too long and a welcome mat the wrong color. I actually had to laugh at the absurdity of it, except it wasn't funny at all. This woman was trying to financially terrorize us into submission, and the scary part was that it was probably working on other families. How many people had gotten these same outrageous demands and just paid them to make the harassment stop? I even caught myself Googling, "Can you survive living under a bad HOA?" That's how low I'd sunk. "Maybe we should just pay it," Rachel says that night, but I can see the defeat in her eyes. Follow her rules, keep our heads down. Is fighting this really worth all the stress? That's exactly what Donna wants. Fear and submission. Eli started closing his curtains every night, even in summer. Rachel stopped unpacking the last few boxes. It was like none of us wanted to admit we'd made a mistake, but I'm looking at my wife's exhausted face, seeing how this is wearing her down, and part of me is wondering if Rachel's right. Maybe we should just give in, pay the money, and try to fly under the radar. But then I think about Eli scared in his own home, and all those other families who got driven away because they didn't have the resources or knowledge to fight back. Looking back, I still can't believe I was actually considering giving in to extortion just to have some peace, but the psychological pressure was intense. As I organized our growing evidence file that night, a terrifying thought crept in. Was I building our defense against a neighborhood bully? Or was I walking us deeper into Donna's carefully laid trap, where she'd escalate to methods that could actually put my family in physical danger? Time to flip the script. I draft a formal letter citing the actual community bylaws, pointing out every discrepancy in Donna's bogus violations, and requesting an emergency board meeting to address what I politely call unauthorized rule enforcement and documentation irregularities. Professional, civil, and legally bulletproof. I spend hours crafting this thing, making sure every reference is accurate, every tone perfectly respectful but firm. Looking back, I probably overthought it, but I wanted to give her every opportunity to back down gracefully before things got ugly. Maybe I should have been more direct from the start. I don't know. But something told me that building a paper trail of reasonable attempts at resolution would be important later if this ended up in court or with law enforcement. Donna's response. She cancels the meeting before it's even scheduled and fires back with an ultimatum that makes my jaw drop. Pay $2,000 in accumulated violations within 24 hours or face Sheriff's Department intervention for repeated community disruption. $2,000 for imaginary rule violations. I actually had to read her email 3 times because the escalation was so dramatic. From $800 to $2,000 in the span of one professional letter requesting a meeting. Seriously, did she really think threatening fake law enforcement would intimidate someone who installs security systems for a living? The woman was either completely delusional about her authority or desperate enough to try anything to maintain control. Either way, she just made a massive tactical error by putting her threats in writing. Here's where I get strategic. I stared at the phone for 10 minutes before dialing. What if she called my bluff? What if this made things worse? I called Donna directly, keeping my voice calm and professional while making sure my recording equipment is running. I'd be very interested to meet this sheriff contact who handles HOA violations. I tell her, trying to sound genuinely curious rather than confrontational, especially since county records show no such enforcement division exists. I'm fishing, hoping she'll take the bait and reveal more about whatever she's planning. The silence on the other end of the line stretches for almost 10 seconds before she responds, and I can practically hear her scrambling to come up with something convincing. This is the moment where she either backs down and admits she was bluffing, or doubles down and digs herself into a hole she can't climb out of. Hook, line, and sinker. Donna explodes. "My cousin Rick works security and enforcement." She screams into the phone, all pretense of professionalism completely abandoned. "He'll be happy to explain community compliance to you personally. We handle problem residents our way around here." Bingo. She just confessed to planning fake law enforcement intimidation, and I've got it all on recording. I wish I could tell you I saw this coming, but honestly, I expected her to back down when confronted with facts. Instead, she doubled down so hard that she basically handed me a confession. That can't be right, can it? Was she really stupid enough to threaten fake police intervention over a recorded phone line? But there it was, clear as day, her own voice admitting to planning to use her cousin to impersonate law enforcement. That phone call confirms everything I suspected. Donna's planning to escalate to physical intimidation, using fake authority figures. I enhanced the system I'd already set up: more motion sensors, tighter audio capture. This wasn't just home protection anymore, it was evidence gathering. My security background is finally paying off, because I know exactly what kind of evidence will hold up in court and what won't. The irony isn't lost on me that the same skills I use to protect other people's homes are now being used to protect my own family from a neighbor who's completely lost her mind. I'm installing cameras with night vision audio recording capabilities and motion detection, the full professional setup. If Donna wants to play games with fake authority figures, she's about to find out what happens when you mess with someone who actually understands how real security systems work. At the grocery store, someone I'd spoken to last week suddenly turned their cart around. The woman down the street who once brought cookies now crossed to the other sidewalk. Words getting around that we're fighting back, and neighbors start avoiding us like we've got the plague. A neighbor whispers to me while walking her dog, "Just pay the fines, honey." Fighting her never ends well for anybody. The fear in her voice tells me everything I need to know about Donna's methods. How long had this woman been terrorizing people? How many families had been driven away by this same systematic harassment? I'm starting to understand that we're not just fighting for our own family. We're fighting for every person who's been too scared or financially unable to stand up to this bully. But the isolation is real, and it's starting to wear on Rachel and Eli both. A new neighbor moved in 2 blocks over. I introduced myself, and she froze. Later, Eli found a flyer in our mailbox: "Non-compliant residents create hostile living environments." It had our address in bold. During my research, I stumbled across something interesting. Donna's family construction company has somehow landed every single community repair and maintenance contract for the past 5 years. Prices that are about 40% above market rate. Coincidence? I don't think so. The pieces are starting to come together. The forced property sales, the unnecessary community improvements, the inflated contractor prices. This isn't just about control, this is about money. Donna's been running a protection racket disguised as an HOA, and we just happen to be the first family stubborn enough to document everything instead of running away. The financial motive explains everything. She drives families out, creates maintenance issues that require expensive repairs, and her family company gets the contracts at inflated prices. Rachel asks me straight up if I think Donna will actually follow through on her threats. She's painted herself into a corner, I tell her honestly. Bullies like this always double down when someone fights back instead of running away. But inside, I'm wondering if I'm putting my family in danger by refusing to back down. What if Donna really is unhinged enough to send fake cops to our house? What if this escalates beyond harassment into something actually dangerous? Looking back, I should have called real law enforcement the moment she threatened fake police intervention, but at the time, I was still hoping she'd come to her senses. As I ran through our security system one final time that night, I couldn't shake the gut feeling that Donna's next move would either end this nightmare once and for all, or turn it into something much, much worse than neighborhood harassment. The motion sensors go off like air raid sirens at exactly 1 o'clock in the morning. Heavy pounding on our front door echoes through the cabin. Bang, 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 Sheriff's Department. Open up immediately, we have multiple complaints about this property. My heart's pounding, but years of protecting other people's homes are finally paying off, this time for my own. Real cops don't sound like bad actors in a community theater production. The rhythm's wrong, the tone's wrong, and most importantly, real law enforcement doesn't show up at 1 o'clock in the morning for HOA violations without advance notice or warrants. I'm already moving toward our security control panel, making sure every camera angle is capturing this performance in high definition. Whatever's about to happen, we're going to have evidence that would hold up in any courtroom. Through our security camera feed, I get a crystal clear view of the show. Rick Sanders, Donna's cousin, squeezed into an ill-fitting security uniform that looks like he borrowed it from a mall cop. The plastic badge pinned to his chest is reflecting our porch light like a disco ball, and even from the camera angle I can see it's obviously fake. Behind him stands Donna herself, holding a flashlight and clipboard like she's directing a military operation. I actually have to bite my tongue to keep from laughing out loud at the sight of them. Seriously, did they really think this costume party routine would fool anyone? The badge is so obviously fake that I can see what looks like a price tag still attached to the back of it. These people are either completely delusional or so desperate they've convinced themselves this ridiculous plan might actually work. We're here to inspect for community violations and remove unauthorized items, Rick bellows, trying to sound official, but coming off more like a kid playing dress-up. You have 30 seconds to open this door voluntarily, or we'll be forced to make entry. Forced entry for HOA violations. These people have lost their minds. I call out through the window, keeping my voice calm and clear. We'll need to see official warrants and proper identification before opening our door. Let them dig their own legal grave while the cameras roll. The silence that follows tells me they weren't expecting anyone to actually challenge their authority. Most people probably just open the door in panic when someone claims to be law enforcement, but my background in home security taught me long ago, always verify, always document, never assume the badge is real just because someone wears it. Rachel's hands are trembling as she dials. I'd never seen her look at me that way. Not afraid of me, but afraid I might do something reckless. Her other hand grips the edge of the kitchen island like it's anchoring her to the floor. Every logical part of me is saying, stay calm, document it, get the footage. But there's a fire in my chest. Husband-father survivor that's screaming to throw that door open and end this circus right now. Eli's awake now, standing in his doorway. His eyes are wide, scared but steady. Dad, are those real police, he whispers, and I can hear the uncertainty in his voice. No, son, I tell him quietly. Real police officers follow procedures. They don't threaten to break into homes over garden gnomes and basketball hoops. I should have said more, should have told him it would be okay, but in that moment, I'm watching our front porch turn into a live crime scene, and I need to stay sharp. Rick tries the door handle, then starts pushing against the frame like he's actually going to break in. We don't need warrants for community compliance checks, he shouts, the desperation in his voice growing with every syllable. Open up, or we're coming in anyway. The legal ignorance would be hilarious if it weren't so dangerous. Because even though these aren't real cops, they're still threatening to commit breaking and entering. And I've got a 13-year-old watching this play out in real time. What would you do if fake police tried to bust into your house at 1 a.m? Fight back, hide, hope they leave. My instinct is to protect my family, but I also know any move I make could be twisted, edited, reframed. The cameras will show what really happened, but only if I don't give them an excuse. From his room, Eli emerges carrying his Nerf blaster, a realistic-looking toy gun with LED lights and sound effects. He'd been playing with it earlier, and in the chaos, it looks intimidating enough to startle someone who isn't thinking clearly. The kid's scared, but there's a fire in his eyes that makes me proud and terrified all at once. I'm going to help, he whispers. Before I can stop him, he's already moving toward the door. I should have stopped him. I should have said no. But maybe he needed this to feel like he could stand up too. Maybe he needed to fight back in his own way. And honestly, his toy blaster might actually be more effective than anything real in this situation. Loud, bright, harmless, but just threatening enough to make idiots flinch. Rick throws his shoulder against the door like some kind of discount action hero. That's when Eli makes his move. He opens the door just wide enough to poke the barrel of his Nerf gun outside. "Get away from our house," he yells, voice firm. Brave, louder than I've ever heard it. He squeezes the trigger, and the toy blasts out sharp, electronic, pew-pew-pew sounds, lights flashing in every direction. Rick jerks backward so hard he almost falls. His badge pops off his shirt and clatters to the porch with a distinctly hollow plastic rattle. Through the camera, I can see the Party City tag fluttering, as it lands clear as day, lit up like a scene from a comedy sketch gone rogue. Perfect evidence. Donna's screaming something incoherent, but it ends with her shouting, "You'll pay for this!" They run. They actually run. Rick trips on the steps, swearing under his breath, trying to hold his pants up, while Donna is already halfway to the car. Her flashlight bounces off the gravel and rolls into the ditch. She doesn't even stop to pick it up. They're humiliated, shaken, and completely defeated by a 13-year-old with a toy gun. I almost laugh. Almost. But instead I start tagging the footage: Rick at the door, Rick pushing on the frame, Donna giving him hand signals, the door opening, the toy firing the badge, falling the retreat. High-definition, time-stamped, cross-angled. If I were on the other side of this case, I'd say we just captured the most self-incriminating footage in HOA history. Eli's standing there breathing hard, Nerf gun loose in his grip. Did I do the right thing, he asks, and I can tell he's still wired from adrenaline. You protected your family when grown adults tried to scare us with fake authority, I tell him, wrapping an arm around his shoulder. That took real courage, and sometimes even a toy is enough when you use it for the right reason. That night he didn't go back to his room. He curled up on the floor next to my side of the bed, still holding the blaster in one hand. And I let him stay there, because truthfully, I didn't want him far from me either. I stayed up long after everyone had gone quiet, watching the footage again and again, watching Donna scream, watching Rick's badge fall off like a cheap Halloween prop, watching my son, my 13-year-old kid, do what grown-ups were too afraid to do. But underneath the pride, something else churned. What kind of neighborhood have we moved into, where a child has to defend his home from adults dressed up as law enforcement? That can't be normal. That shouldn't be acceptable. And I had a feeling deep in my gut that this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Because now we had the footage, the evidence, the truth. And that meant Donna's little reign of clipboard terror had just gone from laughable to criminal. But the real question wasn't whether we could prove what happened. It was whether anyone would believe us over a smiling, polished HOA president who just got beat by a Nerf blaster, and whether she'd come back meaner, smarter, and this time with backup. Within 48 hours, I've requested a special board meeting citing criminal activity involving HOA leadership. I don't reveal what evidence I have. I want maximum impact when the moment's right. The meeting's scheduled for 7 o'clock in the evening at the community center, and word spreads like wildfire through the neighborhood. I can feel the buzz building as neighbors whisper about what might have gone down between us and Donna. Some are clearly on her side. Others seem cautiously curious, and a few brave souls even approach me with quiet stories of their own. HOA horror fines for bird feeders, surveillance notices over garden chairs. One even got a warning for hanging wind chimes that were audibly disruptive. The community center is packed tighter than I've ever seen at any neighborhood gathering. Folding chairs fill the aisles. People stand along the back wall, and the room hums with tension so thick it feels electric. Donna arrives early, flanked by Rick, who for reasons that defy logic is still wearing pieces of that fake security uniform like it's his lucky charm. His belt's loose, the badge is crooked, and the patches don't even match. Donna, meanwhile, is in full performance mode. She stands straight, chin high, clipboard pressed to her chest, like a shield-rehearsed righteousness radiating off her in waves. She launches in immediately, painting us as dangerous residents who violently attacked community enforcement officers performing their lawful duties. If I didn't have video evidence, I'll admit her act could have fooled someone. Her voice trembles in just the right way, her eyes glisten at all the right beats. She calls us unstable, escalatory, aggressive. She claims we trained our son, our 13-year-old boy, to attack innocent volunteers with weapons. According to her, we're waging psychological warfare against the HOA. I don't know what's more outrageous, the script or the fact that some people in the audience are nodding along. The three other board members look deeply uncomfortable, but are required to let both sides speak. Donna dominates the room, her words a flurry of blame and bureaucracy. She clicks through a PowerPoint, flipping charts, highlighting fake infractions, waving around printed emails and incident logs with fabricated timestamps. She refers to me as the hostile male homeowner, but something's off. Maybe it's the way board member Sandra keeps side-eyeing Donna's charts with a growing frown, or how Mark the treasurer won't even meet her gaze. The room isn't entirely buying what she's selling, not this time, and then Rick takes the floor, still in costume, still committed to the role. He describes our ambush with military drama, painting Eli's Nerf blaster as an electronic projectile device, and himself as a compliance officer who barely escaped with his life. His face contorts with rehearsed fear like he's describing a war zone. If I didn't know the truth, I might almost believe him, but the performance is cracking around the edges. Every exaggeration makes a few more eyes narrow in suspicion. Somewhere in the second row, someone actually chuckles out loud when Rick describes incoming fire. Finally, it's my turn. I don't raise my voice. I don't come in hot. I simply walk to the front, open my laptop, and connect it to the meeting room projector. I think the security footage will explain better than I ever could, I say, keeping my tone flat and steady. The room falls silent, so quiet I can hear the creak of someone shifting in their folding chair. I click play. On screen, Rick pushing the door. The fake badge. Donna standing behind him like a commander with a clipboard baton. The flashing lights. Eli's voice shouting, "Get away from our house!" The toy gun. The startled retreat. The plastic badge bouncing off the porch and revealing the Party City tag. The audience gasps are audible. Someone in the front row mutters, "What the hell?" Another whispers, "Oh my God." But I'm not done. Next, I play the recorded phone call. Donna's voice clear as day. "My cousin Rick works security and enforcement. He'll be happy to explain community compliance to you personally. We handle problem residents our way around here." That line alone lands like a hammer. I don't need to add anything. The room absorbs it all on its own. The shift is immediate. Board members go from stiff to pale. Mark is blinking rapidly. Sandra covers her mouth. Donna, one board member, says, voice tight with disbelief, "You brought someone impersonating law enforcement to a resident's home." Another chimes in louder, angrier. "That's not HOA enforcement. That's criminal harassment." I watch Donna's expression falter for the first time tonight. She tries to speak, but it's all splinters now, none of it holding. Her gaze jumps from face to face, trying to find someone still on her side, but even Rick's backing toward the wall, shrinking into his ridiculous uniform. And then, like a house of cards folding in slow motion, Rick breaks, in front of everyone. Okay, he blurts out. "The uniform wasn't real. I borrowed it from my security job at the outlet mall. She gave me $200 and said it was just to scare him a little." His voice is shaking, his arms flailing. "I didn't know the kid had a blaster. I didn't think." The more he talks, the worse it gets. Turns out this isn't their first time. Other families got visits too. Some had no idea what was happening. Some left. None had security footage. Until now. I pull up one final document, set time-stamped violation notices issued by Donna, with no corresponding board approvals. 5 families over 4 years. All fined, all threatened, all gone, all replaced by properties she later claimed needed community adjustments. The pattern is crystal clear. Mark takes off his glasses and rubs his face. Sandra is already flipping through the HOA bylaw book, jaw set like a hammer. The vote isn't even close. Donna is suspended immediately pending criminal investigation. They vote unanimously to notify the HOA attorney and local law enforcement. As Donna storms out shouting about legal retaliation and false narratives, someone from the crowd calls out, "What about the Garcias?" Another adds, "And the Johnsons, didn't they leave after that night visit?" Donna doesn't respond. Her heels click across the tile like retreating gunfire. Rick trails behind her, holding his fake badge in both hands, like it might still mean something. As her car disappears down the mountain road, I let myself breathe again. For the first time in months, maybe longer. We didn't just survive, we won. But as I look around the room at the stunned neighbors, the rattled board, the quiet aftermath of truth finally aired, I realize this battle was only the surface. Donna won't crawl away quietly. The way she left, the way she spat those last threats tells me she's not done. Not by a long shot. If anything, she's just getting started. And next time she won't come with a clipboard and Rick. She'll come back with lawyers, or worse. Within a week, local news stations are receiving slick press releases with professional letterhead. The narrative: Donna's being portrayed as a dedicated community volunteer unfairly attacked by newcomers who weaponize their child against neighborhood officials. Her hired PR firm is spinning this harder than a tornado, but fortunately, video evidence doesn't lie the way press releases do. The story they're pushing might be believable if you haven't seen the security footage of Rick in his Party City badge trying to break into our house at 1 o'clock in the morning. Did she really believe she could spin impersonating law enforcement as community service? But the press releases are professionally written, complete with fake testimonials from concerned neighbors who supposedly witnessed our aggressive behavior toward dedicated volunteers. Her response escalates to pure panic mode. She's claiming our video is deepfake technology created by disgruntled newcomers with sophisticated technical knowledge. She's actually suggesting that we somehow fabricated high-definition security footage of her cousin in a fake police uniform. The desperation is palpable and honestly kind of sad to watch. Looking back, I should have felt sorry for someone whose entire world was crumbling, but it's hard to feel sympathy for someone who terrorized children and elderly residents for financial gain. Her social media posts are getting increasingly unhinged, claiming we're part of some elaborate conspiracy to destroy her family's reputation and business. The woman's completely lost touch with reality. At school, Eli came home unusually quiet. Some kid said I pulled a gun on a cop, he mumbled. His hoodie stayed on the whole ride back. It hit me then, this wasn't just about clearing our name anymore. It was about protecting our sons. The digital warfare gets intense fast. Donna's team is fighting back hard against our viral security footage, trying to get the video taken down from multiple platforms. They're claiming it violates privacy laws and community guidelines, filing false copyright claims, and even suggesting the footage somehow endangers Rick's safety by exposing his identity. Professional damage control in action, but they're fighting a losing battle against clear video evidence of criminal activity. Every time they get one video removed, 3 more copies pop up in different places, some remixed with clown music, others subtitled in multiple languages. The internet doesn't just remember, it replicates, mutates, and mocks. Donna's denial had gone viral in a way no PR firm could recover from. A regional newspaper reporter reaches out after seeing our viral security footage online. Turns out she's been working on an investigative series about HOA abuse across 3 counties, and our story is exactly the kind of documented evidence she's been looking for. This reporter doesn't mess around. Within days, she's uncovered financial records showing that Donna's family construction company has received every single community repair contract for the past 5 years. We're talking about prices that are 30 to 40% above market rate for basic maintenance work. The money trail is damning, and suddenly our little neighborhood dispute becomes part of a much bigger story about systematic fraud. The investigative piece runs as a front-page story: HOA President's Family Profits While Residents Suffer. Our security footage is featured as the primary evidence, but now it's part of a much bigger story about systematic financial abuse spanning half a decade. The reporter found 7 families who were driven out by Donna's harassment campaigns, all within the same time frame that her construction company was landing inflated community contracts. The pattern is clear: terrorize families into selling, then profit from the maintenance and repair work that their departures necessitated. What we thought was personal harassment was actually just business as usual for Donna's criminal enterprise. Multiple families start coming forward with their own horror stories. Each testimony follows the same pattern: escalating fines for made-up violations, nighttime harassment, property theft, and systematic psychological warfare designed to force property sales. The scope of Donna's operation is staggering when you see it all documented together. We're talking about dozens of families over 5 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraudulent fines, and a community living in fear of their own HOA president. The reporter's investigation reveals that Donna's family has profited over $200,000 from unnecessary community improvements and inflated maintenance contracts, all funded by terrorizing residents into compliance. The district attorney announces a criminal investigation into fraud, harassment, and police impersonation charges. The state attorney general gets involved because of the potential mail fraud related to all those fake violation notices. What started as a neighborhood dispute is now a multi-agency criminal case making headlines across the region. The FBI gets contacted about potential racketeering charges, since this appears to be an organized criminal enterprise operating under the guise of an HOA. Donna's little kingdom is crumbling faster than she can hire lawyers to defend it. Her downfall isn't quiet. During a live interview, a reporter pulls out a still image from our footage, the badge, mid-air, Party City tag flapping. Donna freezes. Her smile falters. No comment, she mutters and walks off camera. It loops on local news that night, twice. Neighbors who have lived in fear for years are finally speaking up, publicly sharing stories about families driven to bankruptcy by frivolous fines and elderly residents harassed into selling their homes below market value. The psychological impact testimonies are heartbreaking: children afraid to play in their own yards, families spending their life savings on legal fees to fight bogus violations, elderly residents developing anxiety disorders from constant harassment. Donna's reign of terror affected far more people than any of us realized, and now that the dam has burst, the flood of testimonies is overwhelming. The community transformation is immediate and dramatic. Property values that had been mysteriously declining for years suddenly start recovering as word spreads that the harassment campaign is over. Families who had been planning to sell and flee decide to stay and rebuild. A sense of actual community starts emerging for the first time in years, with neighbors finally feeling safe to talk to each other without fear of retaliation from Donna's network of enforcers and informants. I find myself chatting with people I hadn't even met yet. One neighbor who hadn't waved at us since we moved in brings over cookies and says, "I didn't know how bad it was. I'm sorry." As criminal charges mounted against Donna like an avalanche, I finally started believing that justice might actually win. But then her lawyer called with an offer that caught me completely off guard: and made me realize this nightmare might have one final unexpected twist. 6 months later, we're sitting in a real courtroom, watching Donna maintain her innocence to the bitter end. Her lawyers arguing that she was just an overzealous volunteer trying to protect community property values and standards. And the performance is almost admirable in its complete detachment from reality. But video evidence doesn't lie, and neither do financial records showing systematic fraud over multiple years. The prosecutor plays our security footage for the judge and jury, and watching it on that big courtroom screen somehow makes it even more surreal. Every detail is crystal clear. Rick's fake uniform, the Party City badge falling off Donna, directing the operation like a military commander, and both of them fleeing in panic after getting startled by my 13-year-old son's toy gun. Having accepted a plea deal to testify against Donna, Rick details 5 years of intimidation operations targeting dozens of families. He describes the systematic harassment campaigns designed to force property sales, the fake violation notices printed on official-looking letterhead, and the nighttime psychological warfare that drove good people from their homes. His testimony reveals the true scope of Donna's operation, not just random bullying, but a calculated criminal enterprise that generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraudulent revenue. The courtroom gasps when Rick admits that families who refused to sell their homes would face escalating harassment until they either fled or suffered complete financial ruin from legal fees and fraudulent fines. Just when I think we've heard everything, a former board treasurer takes the stand. Her testimony is devastating as she describes years of financial manipulation and intimidation. Donna threatened to destroy my son's career if I didn't approve her construction contracts, she says, her voice shaking with emotion. I was terrified to speak up because I saw what happened to families who crossed her. The financial records prove that Donna's family profited over $200,000 from unnecessary community improvements and inflated maintenance contracts. What we experienced was just the latest chapter in a years-long criminal enterprise disguised as HOA governance. The judge allows Eli to give an impact statement, and I've never been prouder of my son. She made our whole family scared to be in our own home, he says, looking directly at Donna with remarkable composure for a 13-year-old. Nobody should have that kind of power over other people. What she did was wrong, and I'm glad I stopped her. The courtroom is completely silent as Eli speaks, and I can see several jury members wiping their eyes. Donna refuses to look at him, during his statement staring at the floor like a child being scolded. The contrast between my son's courage and her cowardice is striking. A kid with a toy gun had more integrity than a grown woman who terrorized families for profit. I glance at Rachel, whose hand has been squeezing mine tighter with every word Eli says. There's pride in her face, but also a flicker of sadness for all the months we lost to fear. The pattern revealed through testimony is sickening in its systematic nature. 7 former residents describe identical harassment campaigns designed to force property sales below market value, followed by expensive community improvements that somehow always required Donna's family construction company. The psychological warfare tactics were sophisticated, targeting families, with children first using fake authority figures to create fear and isolating victims by turning neighbors against each other through a network of informants and enforcers. Donna had created a criminal organization that operated like a protection racket, except instead of protecting people, she was the threat they needed protection from. The verdict comes back guilty on all counts: fraud, harassment, conspiracy, and police impersonation. The judge sentences Donna to 18 months in prison orders, $50,000 in restitution to affected families, and imposes a permanent ban from any HOA leadership position. Rick gets 6 months and community service for his role in the fake police scheme. Justice finally served. As the bailiff leads them away, I can't help but think about all the families who suffered because no one had the evidence or courage to fight back before now. The judge's final comments are scathing, describing Donna's operation as a systematic criminal enterprise that violated the basic trust between neighbors and perverted the concept of community governance for personal profit. Then, in a moment that makes the room hold its breath, he slams his gavel and adds, "Let this be a warning to anyone who hides tyranny behind paperwork." The transformation in our community is immediate and dramatic. A new HOA president gets elected by an overwhelming margin. Someone who actually focuses on legitimate community needs instead of authoritarian power trips. Donna's fake rules get repealed immediately, and the neighborhood atmosphere shifts from fear to genuine cooperation. We not only keep our basketball hoop, but we install a proper playground set for Eli and all the neighborhood kids. A group of neighbors even volunteers to repaint the old picnic area near the trailhead. Our property goes from being a place of fear and conflict to the center of real community life, with kids playing and neighbors chatting over the fence the way it should have been from day one. Eli becomes a genuine hero among the neighborhood kids, and plenty of adults too. The confidence he gained from standing up to adult bullies has transformed his entire personality. He's teaching younger kids basic problem-solving skills and still building engineering projects, but now he's not afraid to stand up when something's wrong. One Saturday, I catch him showing a group of second graders how to rig motion sensors to squirt water at suspicious clipboard activity. The playground we installed becomes a gathering place for the whole community, and watching kids play where our basketball hoop used to be feels like the perfect symbol of how we turn Donna's harassment into something positive for everyone. Donna's forced to sell her mansion to pay restitution and legal fees. Her family's construction business loses all community contracts, and their reputation is destroyed throughout the region. The money flows back to the families she victimized, and the community finally gets honest contractors doing quality work at fair prices. Property values recover quickly once word spreads that the harassment campaign is over, and several families who'd been planning to flee decide to stay and rebuild their lives in what's now becoming a real community instead of Donna's personal fiefdom. Even the neighborhood Facebook group feels different, less about complaints, more about block parties and bake sales. Our story inspires HOA reform across 3 counties. Residents in other communities vote to replace authoritarian leadership with boards that actually serve homeowners instead of exploiting them. Sometimes one family's courage to fight back can change everything, but it took video evidence and systematic documentation to overcome years of fear and intimidation. The ripple effect continues as other communities implement oversight mechanisms to prevent future Donnas from taking control. One local paper calls Eli the kid who ended the clipboard cult, and honestly, I think he kind of loves that. We didn't destroy Donna. I tell people who ask about our experience. She destroyed herself the moment she chose power over people. Truth has a way of rising to the surface when you document everything and refuse to be intimidated. The real lesson isn't about fighting HOA bullies. It's about communities coming together to protect each other from people who abuse positions of trust for personal gain. As I'm finishing this story, Eli and half the neighborhood kids are having an epic water battle with his homemade devices, and laughter fills the air where fear and tension used to live. Rachel and I are sitting on our porch, watching Eli teach younger kids how to use Nerf blasters safely, when she says he really did open fire that night. I smile and put my arm around her, thinking about how sometimes the smallest acts of courage can bring down the biggest bullies. And it changed absolutely everything. I reply, watching our son lead a group of kids in building the next generation of neighborhood defenders, armed with nothing more dangerous than imagination, courage, and the knowledge that good people working together can overcome any tyrant. The final message is simple. If you're facing an HOA bully or any kind of neighbor harassment, document everything and don't try to face it alone. Build your evidence, find your allies, and remember that sometimes the scariest confrontations lead to the sweetest victories. Truth and community support can overcome any neighborhood dictator, but it takes courage to take that first stand and refuse to be intimidated into silence. And sometimes all it takes is a camera, a kid with a Nerf gun, and the will to say, "Not here, not anymore."